this video, I am going to be demonstrating the reality of echolocation. And I'm going to be doing so by sitting in front of this video camera for 5 minutes without saying anything. I'm just going to quietly sit here and meditate for 5 minutes with my eyes closed. But what I want you as a viewer to pay attention to is to what extent do you now start to see the light behind me essentially kind of react as a result of these electromagnetic impulses relayed by the echolocation. And as the meditation gets deeper, we might start to see it more apparent, because if sound is what light travels on top of as a treadmill, and if I start introducing sound, all of a sudden technically the light should start shining brighter. But I'm not going to be saying anything. The sound I'm introducing is the echolocation itself, the thought, which should, if this test is true, it should cause the light to essentially shine brighter or have patterns of expansion and contraction according to the stimulus. So let's begin. Welcome back. I see it has charged up a little bit because I haven't moved, but it is shining brighter. And so now, in the direction going forward, do you see now that in the practice of sitting still and just sitting in your thoughts and just letting those just pass by you, where for a certain period of time you just don't say anything, you don't react, all you simply do is just sit there and let whatever is in your mind go through your mind. This is a practice of meditation which allows you now as an individual suffering from echolocation adaptation. It gives you now as an individual the ability to learn to control, not to react to your thought process. Now to the viewer, bear with me for a second because I'm bearing some tremors right now as a result of my medication. Just bear with me for a second. Let me get through this for a second. Anyways, the point I was trying to make is from this particular practice known as meditation, you can actively learn to channel what it means, which and what thoughts you wish to grab in order to bring them into the world. Because see, the mind is like a river. The mind is like a river because the thoughts are the current. You can either stand in the water and let that current pass by you, or you can choose to dive in. And as a result of diving in, now you capture and dive deeper into that thought. But the problem we are facing is that echolocation becomes a very powerful experience. It becomes more powerful than the physical experience because it's always there, no matter what you're doing. And the only way you can distract yourself from thinking is by doing. And the only thing you can do to distract yourself from doing is by thinking. And now you see there's a fine balance and a practice, a discipline in this particular art form, which is a practice known as just taking care of yourself. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. And once you have these particular conditions, you could say, you have to do what you gotta do to make sure you are well. Sorry folks, my apologies, I wasn't expecting this to happen. The tremors really are up the length of the spine and in the shoulders and into the forearms and hands, a little bit into the calves as well. That's a symptom of serotonin syndrome. But I'm trying to teach you as a viewer, if you're suffering from this condition, also known as schizophrenia, which in my explanation is actually echolocation, a natural occurring phenomena in different animal life forms, which is how they communicate. It's kind of a how animals feed off your vibe, kind of, if you wish to understand what I'm saying. They understand you. And when you understand an animal, all of a sudden you can begin to understand yourself a little bit too. Because we as humans are not separate from animals. We might be civilized, we might be clothed, but we are actually wild animals that have simply just learned to be educated or tamed. And we might be civilized to a degree. We can all, to a certain point, say, yeah, we can behave amongst ourselves fairly well. Sorry, folks. But in our civilization, as human beings, we are not separate from the animal kingdom. And we see that rather quickly when our triggered selves result in our animalistic instincts returning, which is known as, well, you could simply you say it's an emotion. We're all human, we're all animals. So what's the problem? I punched one person one time, and I've been suffering as a punishment for 10 fucking years. And oddly enough, at 31 years old, about to turn 32, in 7 days, it is fascinating the level that somehow I'm the bad guy in all of this. Because somehow it's acceptable to do this to an individual as myself, from whomever the others were. It's acceptable to do that to an individual. But now, as that individual, it's not acceptable for you to be yourself. It's not acceptable for you to be it's not acceptable for you to be. But based on the observation you made in this video regarding the light, I have shown you the light. It breathes and it is alive, no matter where the source, because light is light. And you, as a hue man, hue being a measure of light, man being, you are a measure of light as an individual. It's up to you how brightly you choose to shine at that point, as corny as that might sound. But in the end, sorry, this one's a little bit harder than the You see, everyone tells me I need to be on my medication to keep me stable from hurting myself. But in putting me on these medications are hurting me in order to prevent me from hurting myself. Because I'm at a point now where most people somehow have this fear. They think I'm somehow this dangerous person to other people. I've only assaulted one person, which was my father. As a result, I was charged and arrested and given a psychiatric treatment as a result of punching him. And now I am here at 31 years old, still living in the same house with the same patterns continuing. And I'm continuously wondering, is it me that's supposed to be, is it me that's the problem? Is it me that's causing me to be me? Or is the idea that somehow I'm just messed up? But I know my truth, and I stand by it firm and proud. No matter what my story might be, I am proud of who I am. I don't think there's another person that could walk underneath the weight that I do in my life. I don't think there's anybody in the world that could walk underneath that particular one. And so, in terms of my approach going forward, well, if I can't help myself, then I can help others. And so, I'm actively pursuing a membership at a club, which is a group of individuals with themselves, their own mental health issues. And essentially this club, which I won't reveal the name of, because it's something I'd like to keep relatively, not for myself, but for the others that might seek to abuse the idea now of what mental health looks like. Because see, people with a condition like mine, we stand out like a sore thumb in the world, but we also stand out because we are who we are. And at a certain point, you start realizing as a person of mental capabilities, you are no longer normal amongst what is known as normal. But what is normal? What is normal? You can't say Hollywood is normal. Yet that's highly popular. You can't say that somehow every single minority group gets to be protected. Yet there's one that remains unprotected. You can't cheer for the underdog if you're only cheering for the underdog. I don't know where I'm going with that one. It's been, this road of mental health has been a challenge, to say the least. And for those of you watching, wondering what the hell is going on, thinking that my time in front of the camera is exactly who I am in my daily life. Each video varies, of course, but you have to realize that in the idea of being passionate or emotional, and learning those things for the first time in over 10 years, it's not an easy feat. You know, I'm at a stage in my life now where for the last 10 years, 6 out of the last 10 years, I already spent alone with no one to speak to, which made this echolocation develop even worse, because if you don't speak, it does. And every time I've ever tried to connect with anybody, whether I was where I was born in the Caribbean, one of the only white children in a indigenous African mixture of population, and they didn't like me too much on that island, and then I went to France, didn't get liked too much either there. Then I moved to Canada, didn't get liked either. So my question is, what exactly is it? Because even without doing anything, somehow it's seems there's a lot of discrimination in this world based on somebody that's different than you, or there's a lot of hatred. We call it a stigma, right? Which, now, you can say, well, the stigma towards that individual looks at that individual based on the fact that they're not normal. The stigma doesn't look at the history of the individual. They simply look at it at their particular present day and age. They don't see the growth of that individual, the moments of deterioration, and how far they have come from not only battling mental health, but also battling brain injury, severe brain injury, severe brain damage. I'm at a level of brain damage now where my eyesight has permanently gone blurry, to a point where, for me, in my own experience, it feels like I'm looking at an old television screen when I look around. When you're looking at it super close, and you see all the chemical pixels that make the screen, right? Because that's what is chemicals holding matter together. You see, the moment you awaken in echolocation, you begin to understand the concepts of resonance, which if you increase your resonance, you simply just increase the rate at which molecules combine, and then you start seeing bigger blocks and bigger blocks and bigger blocks. And this is why we see fractals as people when we hallucinate on hallucinogenics. But that simply is that is as a response of a serotonergic rush, where you are now experiencing large amounts of serotonin, which result in your perception of the molecules of the universe to take on a greater palette. they look like they take on squares all of a sudden, and then you see all these little dots everywhere, like the Matrix, ones and zeros. And it makes you wonder, is anything even real at that point anymore? Because you might be existing inside of a digital universe at that point. Or is physical matter not the same fundamental foundation as a digital universe? It obeys the same laws called physics. It obeys the same biology, the same chemistry, because each particular algorithm serves a purpose in making sure that the entirety maintains its rhythm as a whole. And in the idea of quantum physics, which is my favorite quantum physics understanding of all other quantum physics teachings. And the teaching is, unless if observed by consciousness, matter does not take form. Which means if you were not here, none of this would exist. Because you are that consciousness from above that's come down. And now you are here. And now, welcome to the world. For the past 26 minutes, I believe, I can't read from this far. For the past so long, I've been somewhat counting the time without really counting the time, just because I'm good at keeping track. But in terms of the actual video itself, this is going to be a wrap for the night, folks. I just want to share one more last teaching before the night. And we'll see you next time.